Hi everybody, my name is Prachi Taneja and I'm a digital representative at IBS Gurgaon. Today, as we had a panel discussion on future of HR, we are going to further discuss the topic and also talk about HR and analytics altogether. So sir, thank you so much for being with us here today. And first question coming up from the panel discussion itself, future of HR, how HR has changed or how it was before and how do you foresee it in future?
So HR used to be more of a traditional, provider of employee services, and it was more of union or issue-related problem-solving kind of a situation where more of a psychological aspect of HR used to be seen. But with the time, the trends are changing, and we can see more of data approach, and the psychological part still remains. We definitely need to focus on that because that remains the backbone of an organization, and from an HR perspective, where you need to solve issues, solve human problems, and then move the organization towards a more productive culture. But at the same point in time, now more of a data-driven approach is being taken up, so that a lot of problems can be solved using data. You can actually go back and look at the data, and data speaks for itself. There are a lot of answers can be given from data, and people can actually use data to visualize. So things like big data, or things like millions of rows of data being generated in HR. So when I look at data yesterday, maybe you were using a floppy drive which was 1.44 MB. Then you move to a pen drive which was a GB, 2 GB or a 4 GB. And today you do not take a pen drive or a phone even for that matter, which is less than 64 GB or a 100 or 128 GB.
Sure.
So the times are changing with more and more data being generated. 90% of the world's data, as per a study in IBM, is generated in the last 3 years. So if 90% of the data through social networks or through these kind of various employee or through customer patterns have been generated in the last 3 years, there's a huge to analyze. Now definitely that from a consumer or from a marketing perspective, as a lot of, or the operational perspective, from a supply chain perspective, there's a huge amount of data that's there in the last 10 years. A lot of data has been generated through Facebook's or through Google's, or similarly in the HR space through employee, where you started capturing through systems. Now since that's generating a minimum mid-sized organization will have about 300 terabytes of data. Now if you're talking about that size of data, transforming HR and you entering that digital day, it's not that we're not calling HR as a digital HR space. So I think that's what it's transforming, and that's bringing the future of HR into more digital side of it, where big data, words like big data, okay, you don't have those many employees in an organization where you really need to go at a big data level today, but the kind of data you will be generating in the future for employees for maybe 10 years, 15 years, you will have a lot of data to analyze. You can analyze a lot of patterns. The role of a recruiter, the role of an HRBP, or a role of an HR manager is going to change a lot using data, and decisions would be easy and far more focused than what it was yesterday. So that's how I think HR is changing.
So now we've talked a lot about data out there. So we've been also learning about data mining, data warehousing, so many big terms out there, big data itself. So how is it HR and data analytics all together? Because usually it's marketing and analytics and finance. So how is it with HR and analytics all together?
So when I say HR analytics, now let's take an example of marketing analytics where you're saying a consumer behavior pattern.
Yeah.
You pretty much have heard those terms of machine learning or artificial intelligence, AI, and the ML being talked about nowadays a lot. Now, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is that you can actually use data to predict the future of the data.
Yes.
Now, in that situation, you have something called a machine learning, which means that traditionally a machine is going to understand the pattern of how a human is analyzing the data, record that, and then gradually start producing the learnings itself, so that they can produce some findings out of it. Some auto insight generation is what we call it in the industry. And now with that, as and when it progresses over a period of time, it keeps on learning its own patterns and trends, and analyzing those patterns and trends, they actually generate and get better and better over a period of time. Now that's machine learning or artificial intelligence. Now in HR world, the way employee behaves, the pattern of a behavior of an employee, what is making an employee more productive, their performance ratings, their performance comments, There's a lot in the engagement surveys that you do. There's a lot of text mining that can be generated in those spaces, and a lot of data being generated from that space can be analyzed either through algorithms using artificial intelligence or machine learning over a period of time. Where today humans are analyzing it, tomorrow machines are going to analyze it, and then gradually a lot of big terms like big data and the other terms are going to actually be introduced in HR, which are not many organizations have implemented today, hardly. Like you can talk about Google's or Project Oxygen that Google implemented over a period of time. Those can be heard, but then eventually that's going to be the future with most of the organizations. Today Fortune 500 are implementing it on a roadmap of implementing it, maybe tomorrow mid-size does it.
So when we're talking about so much of technology out there, do you think that in future there would be no jobs for us, no jobs for humans, or would it be, because we've already discussed that, so I would really want everybody else to also know about it, that technology and altogether, is it just an advancement for us, or is it a threat to us?
It's really not a threat, it's about how things are changing, evolving.
Yeah.
So if things are going to evolve over a period of time, if humans can actually, or HR professionals I would rather say, are able to adapt to that change. So change management is a very difficult thing. You need to change the traditional way of thinking and probably go more on a global way of thinking to say, today if you can use data in any other field, why can't you use it in HR for decision making? And the more data you want to make for use and the way you're able to analyze that data, so the jobs may look different, but the jobs will still remain. A recruiter will still remain a recruiter. Maybe the software is throwing up CVs back to you to say that, okay, this is a 100% fit versus this is a 70% fit or a 50% fit in a certain role or a skill set that you need. But does not mean that a recruiter will not be required. So that will continue to evolve over a period of time, and that remains.
Yeah, and so basically HR has always had this orthodox and very conventional and traditional approach, like you said, and even we wouldn't know much about it, and we also thought that HR only turns out to be the one who would recruit us, who would see the talent ahead. So is it just that, or is it, there's so much more to it, right? So we would want, because you're already there, we would want to know the more part of it. What else is there? Because there are so many students who would want to opt for HR, but they might think it's an easy way out, or it's just a desk job. So what is more to an HR job?
So going back to my industry, that I come back from a mining industry, if about 20% of the jobs are in the field versus 80% are on the desk, I would still say that it's not completely on the desk, because there are people going out in the field to understand how a union employee or a worker actually does its job on a daily basis. Till the time they don't understand it, they can actually never solve the issues. So be it an HR business partner or a HR professional working with an HR business partner, or be it a recruiter. Till the time, the recruiting is also niche. So when I go to HR as a department, it's not only recruitment, it's about talent management, it's about strategic sourcing, it's about performance management, it's about remuneration, it's about industrial relations, it's about so many things that people are now actually changing the way they look at HR. HR is solving a lot of complex problems in the organization, be it productivity. In our own organization, we're working towards solving a lot of complex issues where we can help boost productivity, simplify the work timings for people, simplify a lot of the issues that they face on a day-on-day basis. Remuneration analysis or performance analysis is just not based on very simple way of preparing bell curves. It's also about now getting deeper into the skill set to understand the market benchmarking, to about understanding the internal benchmarking, to about understanding what an employee needs and what skill sets are required. It's even going very individual specific, where using the technology you can actually go back and say that what an employee deserves versus what an employee needs to be given over a period of time. So that's completely changing over a period of time.
So we moved from the traditional approach.
We moved from a traditional approach.
And there's a lot more to achieve and see in future.
And there's a lot of statistical aspect that's also being introduced in it, and there's a lot of systems aspect that's being introduced to it. There are challenges and barriers like data quality, which definitely remains an issue, system investments, but eventually they're getting sorted, and I think in the next 5 years you'll see a very different face of HR. So, I mean, anyone who's, be it from a salary point of view or be it from any other point of view, I think the way HR jobs are being paid or the way things are changing from a data or learning perspective, is going to change a lot, just like a marketing or any other change.
So, sir, how was your IBS experience? And so we had a question answer session, we had students out there, and we had a whole HR panel discussion. So how was your overall experience, and what would you like to tell the students? Because sooner or later, the ones who want to be in the HR field, any 2 or 3 top tips that you would want to give them?
Well, I think it was a very nice interactive session as well, like full of energy. Students coming after even sessions to ask a lot of questions around the HR. So definitely a very energetic set of people here. Yes, I could hear some of the issues around that very few people want to offer HR.
Yeah.
I think if I can contribute in changing the way that they approach or thinking it, happy to do that. Versus, I think it was a brilliant experience being invited here and learning a lot about. It's good to always connect with youngsters and understand how they think, so that we also learn from them. So it's a great.
I'm
great
sure
experience.
after this interview, there would be a lot of students opting for HR too. And thank you so much for being with us, sir. Thank you.